once I was in Sweden, I was going on an outfit right to the north of Sweden, like high up, really, right up. And I was with 4 other people. And one of them was a guy who was brought up in Africa. He was a missionary son. And we'd missed our planes and everything had got really complicated. But anyway, so in the end we managed to go on a bus. But we didn't realise it was the post bus. So instead of taking us 4 hours to go out from the airport, it took us 7. And then in the middle of it, the driver turned around and said, well, we'll have to stop because I have to pick up the school kids, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I have to drop this post off, which was fine. So then we had to go in and right up, and then where nothing is, find a little cafe to wait in. And this guy said, oh, it's fine, he said, it's just like Africa. He said, if you want to go somewhere, you don't know if the bus is going to arrive. The boat might come tomorrow, or it might come in a week. Well, just wait. It's fine. We'll just hang out. Because that's the way he viewed time. The way he views time. But for us, busyness and time, we view, I think that's the way we got sort of caught into this, that time equals money and success.
I love the way you asked if there were any Americans before you insulted them. It's probably experience speaking.
No, it's just a generalisation.
That's true though, you've got to be careful because hands up if you were in the workshop we did yesterday afternoon. Those of you, all the rest of you missed a treat. But I was on about love languages. You know the love languages? Who can remember what they are? Touch, quality time, words. Yeah. It's a genius little thing, isn't it? But I think there's one missing, you see. I think there's another one, which I think is humour. I think humour is really important, you see. And anyway, so for years and years, whenever I'd say, oh, I think humour is really important, I would then say, well, the reason why that wasn't included as a 6th one is the author of The Love Languages is an American. it's a cheap gag, isn't it? Everybody laughs. It always works. Except I nearly got terribly caught. Well, I did get caught out because I was in America. It's worse than that. I was in America, and there was like quite a posh do in this really nice restaurant in Washington DC, and there was, some quite important people around the table, and we were like, for some insane reason, like the guests of honour, So we're probably because we came a long way, probably. Anyway, so after a little while, one of them said, "Well, Richard, is there anything you'd like to say?" And I wasn't prepared at all, you see. So I thought, oh well, I'll talk about the 6th love language, you see. I forgot where I was. And I said, well, I think there should be a 6th love language, you see. And they all went, I think the 6th love language should be humour, you see. And they all went, there it is. And then this guy next to me, he nudged me, and because I remember thinking to myself, I need to remember to stop and not say the other half, which I did. But then he nudged me, and in front of everybody, he said, oh, you only think there isn't a 6th one which is humour because the author's an American. Well, I looked at him, are you telepathic? How do you know that? Where have you been so far? Do you remember? Caught me right out. Anyway, that's not in the notes.
So we have to think about what are we going to do then? Here we are Christians. We want to be good people, don't we? We want to follow Christ. We want to do the right thing, So we have to find different ways. Yeah, we're going to do the flip shot now. So we have to find a way of balancing the way we approach busyness and the way we approach time, don't we? And it's tricky. I think one of the things, for example, we were talking about when you're connected but disconnected, when you're there in body but not in mind, is that maybe on the way back from work, if you're on a train or wherever you get back from work, maybe to listen to some music or read a book or speak in tongues or do something that makes you switch off. So when you're walking through the door from work, you leave work outside the front door. Because, I used to remember when Richard used to be away a lot when the kids were small, and the kids were waiting for him to come home. And I was waiting for him to come home. On the telly about my day, standing at the front door, ready to, jump. But I learned that lesson then because he needed to disconnect. Just chill out a little bit. So I think, if we could chill out before we walk in through the front door, and then when we sit down at the table, think about what our kids want to talk about as well, and your spouse. Ask them about things. I mean, I've just been to Sweden, and I got I have a few relationships there, not brilliant. And when I go, they don't ask me any questions about me. It's all about what I'm doing in my life, how I am. It's the rubbish. Absolutely. What's that all about? Why do I go all this long way, pay all this money to go to a plane, and you don't ask me anything about me?
It's true. She comes home sometimes. I'm so cross with these people. I think,
so, your kids or your wife or your husband can feel the same.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's quite difficult doing like a double act, as some of you guys must find this, because you never know where the other person's going to overlap or stop, or it's kind of, you just got to go freestyle. Crazy, isn't it? So the point I wanted to make is, I have a good friend, Michael Schluter, who runs the Relationship Foundation, which is a think tank academic thing in Cambridge. And I was listening to him the other day, and he was on about, just like Maria's on about, he would, as if, they're a bit posh, so they'd have dinner at 7. It's always indicative of how posh you are when you have dinner, or if you call it, if you name it, if we have supper. Or the really posh people, they call it subs. Come round for subs. Will that be okay? Anyway, so he's a bit posh. So his thing is this: he would always make it to the meal table for 7 o'clock to have dinner with his family. Top marks. Except that he realised after all his children had left home, that 9 times out of 10, although he'd be, like Maria was on about, although he'd be there, he wasn't connecting in because his head was still full of all the busyness of the day. And he said, why is it that I've spent a long time preparing and anticipating like a board meeting, but I spend no time preparing for a meal time with my own family? I have no time thinking about, well, what are we going to talk about? Is there a good question I'll ask? Am I going to ask questions like Maria's on about? When she goes to Sweden, her family, not all of them, but some of them, she sits there like she's flown all the way there. She has a life in England. They don't ask her anything about her life whatsoever. Nothing. As if she's like you might as well be a photo hanging on the wall. What's all that about? Anyway, so his point is a good one. It's a good one. It is like, it's great to be there on time, but it's even better to think to yourself, when I get there, what's it going to look like? When we have dinner together, what are we going to talk about? Obviously, the other people, I'm going to ask them and they're going to make a contribution, but maybe there's something I want to bring, purposefully to the party. Perhaps I want to talk about something in the news and try to bring a biblical perspective to it and have a conversation about that. You know, not that everybody's going to agree or people might disagree, but that's okay. We're having a conversation with family, we can do that. But to be a little bit intentional. I'm not talking about having a 10-point agenda that we have to work through, you know, with matters arising and everything. But I'm just talking about being a little bit. Is that what you do? Is that what you do? What do you do?
We have family meetings and it works because it takes away the personal bit. You can talk about the subject, and it works for us. We have family meetings. It's something that was just any of us can call family meeting. Yeah, and we come together and we talk about the issue. So it's not personal, it's not you do this, that, and whatever. We talk about the issue and we solve the issue together. And sometimes every year, January, we have an agenda and we talk about what we want for the year. Or we don't want.
How did you learn that? You just kind of. Fantastic. So every year in January they have like an annual, like an AGM. Do you have like accounts? AFM, annual family meeting. You have minutes. You have minutes. I want to be part of your family. Come on, come along and sit in there. That would be amazing. Shall we?
Very good idea.
Throw me completely. I thought she was trying to. I'm lost completely now. Except I do have a visual aid here. Can you see? Who needs PowerPoint? When you can draw a line. Anyway, this is what we call a continuum. So, when did the Industrial Revolution start? Who knows? 1850, 1830, 1840. So we'll put here 1830, 40. Interestingly, in Sweden, they didn't have an industrial revolution like we did. They had an industrial process. So it meant that in Sweden, although they'd become industrialized, and they're still, you know, living in huts, you know, they brought into modern life a lot of their old cultures in them. You know, like the celebration of midsummer and Yule stuff and all that kind of thing that you know about. I'm not going to start you off on it, all that. But the point is, they were able to bring all that. Whereas in the UK, because we had a revolution, what happened to people like ancestors of mine is they just left everything and went to live in very industrialised, impoverished situations. And that meant they weren't able to bring any of their cultural heritage with them. It was all left behind. Whereas in Sweden and a couple of other countries, they're able to assimilate it into an industrial age, whereas the rest of us, you know, we did further than that. Interesting. That's got nothing to do with what we're saying. And the other interesting thing about a flip chart is I've learned over the years that the flip charts are much more beneficial to me than they are ever to you. But it just helps me. You won't be able to follow too well, but that's it. So, on our continuum, okay, this is the Industrial Revolution. And this is where we are now, 2015, okay? And then if you project a bit to the future and you say, well, let's think about what life's going to be like. How far ahead are you comfortable with? Maybe 2025? 20, shall we go for 2030? Yeah. 2030, okay? And I'm going to get you to do a bit of work in a minute. I want you to turn to the person next to you and have a conversation, so you might want to prepare yourself to think I might have to speak to a stranger. So, in terms of busyness, okay, if this is where we are, this is maximum capacity, Because we all have a limit in terms of relationships and stuff like that. Okay? And if we'd gone from the Industrial Revolution in terms of our busyness, where are we now? Do you think? Do you think we're up here somewhere? We're right up there. Okay. Now the thing I want you to turn to the person next to you and discuss for a few minutes is, what are we going to do? What are we going to do as we go forward to make sure we don't go over here and explode, so that we can kind of do something like that? Do you understand? I know we're laughing about, but it's really important, like you said, you two, is to have a plan. And you can put it in your annual family meeting and say, look, this is a new priority. It's not just about holidays and larking about and having a curvy screen TV and all that nonsense. What about the relational health of ourselves as a family? So what I want you to do is to talk to the person next to you about it just for a few minutes, and then we're going to have a bit of feedback. So if you've got something to say, prepare yourself, because I'll come and ask you. And we're going to make a little list of things. We haven't got long left, but we'll do that now. Is that okay? Yeah. So let's have that conversation straight away.
Work life for ourselves. We have to make a decision about the amount of time that we spend at work, and it's a decision that we've been toying about for a while. So we know we have to reduce. It's more a reduction for the future. And secondly, we're thinking of ways that we could get a written feedback perspective from our children, from their point of view, because a lot of the relationship we have with them is us basically telling them this has to be done, do this, and there's a lot coming from us. And it's just trying to get it back from the other way, so we know about their concerns and their point of view. It may totally be in our eyes irrelevant and not important, but for them it is their point of view and what is so important to them. So we're just thinking of ways that we can get that coming back as well, and not just see them as, well, we've brought them up to a certain extent, we've done well, let's just go on. We just want to be able to get something back from them. So we're just thinking of the way. We haven't really found that, well, in this short time, we don't know exactly how it's going to be done, but it's just, those are the kind of points we're discussing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we're grappling with, you know, the incentive business, because ultimately our priorities are home, you know, so, and being aware of how, what goes on extending the impacts on them. And I mean, one of the things I started to do was trying to be present when they are back from school.
Yeah.
So even though they are, I always say this, even though they are teenagers, there's a different kind of need.
Yeah.
You know, and if we're not present as parents, they can slip on and you don't know at what point that happens.
It's true.
So it's something I'm very conscious.
Very good. Very good. And also with teenagers, you know, you may think to yourself, I'm going to have a conversation with this teenager at this point, but with teenagers you only have a conversation on their terms, on their schedule, which can be really bad. And of course for you two, because you both have your own businesses, you can have pressure there, because you know, you make hay while the sun shines, so you're going to want to do the work while it's there and do a good job, and because you don't know when the next contract's coming in, you see, so you have particular pressures there. What about somebody over here?
On several occasions in our life, when we've found that things have become a bit too busy, we've made a point of coming to the marriage conference, and it's helped us refocus.
Sweet. Well, that's a good thing. Brilliant. Anybody else? Rainy?
I think just having a few ground rules, one of which was more a discipline for us to make sure the phones were off during mealtime, so that we could actually have mealtime and discuss and not be interrupted. Because you always find there were patterns to interruptions, and we always were interrupted when we were sitting together as a family. So just that's sort of basic. And then we've both got a tendency to be workaholics. And we give permission to our kids to come and interrupt and tell us when we need to stop. And they'd say, Mum, Dad, we really need you. Can you stop work? Can we do something together as a family? And that really helped as well to just
turn that light on for us.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
I would say asking God for direction, really, because it's so easy to try and fit into the pattern of the world, like Rory was saying, because you know you can compare to what other women are doing in the church, and or precious as a mum as well. You know, some of my kids, their friends' mums have just got the 2 children maybe, or 1 or 2 children. And I think I should be doing what they're doing, you know, they should be doing this club and this club, so I drive myself crazy, like, taking them everywhere, and I'm always on the maps, always. So it's just not comparing and trying to fit into what everyone else is doing, and ask God for
Very good.
what He wants me to do.
Very good. It's a great thing to come to a place where you're comfortable in your own skin, you know, with the things that God's given you. Did you want to say something?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so glad for this particular topic because we used to have family time once a week, but it's like a meeting, you come and then you update each other on what's happening and what you want to do for the next week and all that, which is great.